In 2008, NBC reported that Michael Phelps was eating 12,000 calories a day during his Olympic training. Nutritionists called it impossible. The math didn't work. No amount of swimming should burn that many calories. But here's what nobody mentioned. Phelps trained in water temperatures between 50 and 60 degrees for hours, every single day. He wasn't just burning calories through exercise. His body was hemorrhaging energy as pure heat just to maintain core temperature. His metabolism was running at a level that warm, adapted humans simply cannot achieve. And Phelps isn't alone. NASA studied Sherpa guides in the 1970s and found their metabolic rates were 400 to 500% higher than the climbers they were leading up Everest. The Russian Olympic program has dominated winter sports for nearly a century, using cold training protocols they've never fully disclosed. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why cold transforms human performance, the specific mechanisms that make it work, and how elite athletes have been using this for decades while the rest of us trained in heated gyms wondering why we couldn't keep up. But first, I need to show you something about how your body actually burns fuel. Because what you've been told about calories and exercise is missing the most important variable. Let's do some basic math that should make you question everything you've been told about exercise and calories. A 200-pound person swimming at moderate intensity burns roughly 700 calories per hour. Even at elite intensity, you might hit 1,000. Phelps reportedly trained 5 to 6 hours a day. That's maybe 6,000 calories from exercise. Where did the other 6,000 go? The answer is thermogenesis, heat production. Water conducts heat away from your body 32 times faster than air. When you're immersed in cold water, your body faces a choice: produce massive amounts of heat or die. It chooses heat. This heat production happens through two mechanisms. The first is shivering, which most people know about. Your muscles contract rapidly to generate warmth, but shivering is inefficient and exhausting. You can't sustain it for hours. The second mechanism is non-shivering thermogenesis. This is where it gets interesting. Your body activates brown adipose tissue, specialized fat cells packed with mitochondria whose sole purpose is to burn calories and produce heat. No movement required, no muscle fatigue, just pure metabolic fire. Cold-adapted athletes have significantly more brown fat than the rest of us, and they can activate it on demand. This is why Phelps could eat like a competitive eater and look like a Greek statue. He wasn't defying physics. He was using physics that most people don't know exist. In the 1960s, NASA had a problem. Astronauts were losing dangerous amounts of weight during spacewalks. The cold vacuum of space was draining their energy reserves faster than anyone anticipated. So they sent researchers to the one place on Earth where humans routinely perform superhuman feats in extreme cold: the Himalayas. What they found in the Sherpas changed everything they thought they knew about human metabolism. Sherpa guides were carrying heavy loads at extreme altitude in freezing conditions with minimal food and supplemental oxygen. Their clients, wealthy climbers with the best nutrition and equipment money could buy, were struggling to put one foot in front of the other. When NASA measured the Sherpas' metabolic rates, the numbers seemed like errors. These men were burning calories at 400 to 500% the rate of the climbers they were guiding. Their VO2 Max, the gold standard measurement of cardiovascular fitness, was off the charts. But here's the detail that really matters. For the final 2,000 feet of the Everest climb, Sherpas have to eat pure butter and lard just to maintain their weight. Their metabolisms are burning so hot that even massive fat intake barely keeps pace with energy expenditure. The Sherpas aren't genetically superhuman. They've lived at high altitude and cold conditions for approximately 25,000 years. Their biology is fully optimized for this environment. The ancient pathway that Dr. Jack Kruse writes about extensively, the one that allows mammals to thrive in extreme cold, is fully activated in these people. And here's what NASA realized. The same capability exists in every human. It just needs to be awakened. Here's something you can test on yourself tomorrow morning. At the end of your regular shower, turn the water to cold. Not lukewarm. Cold. As cold as your tap will go. Stay there for 60 seconds. Pay attention to what happens over the next few hours. Most people who try this notice something unexpected. They're not hungry. The mid-morning snack craving that usually hits around 10 or 11 just isn't there. That's not placebo. That's your ancient pathway partially activating. The cold triggered a leptin release from your fat cells, and your brain responded by suppressing appetite. Now imagine what happens when you do this consistently, when you combine it with the right eating patterns, when you give your body all the signals it's been waiting for. The Sherpas didn't get their abilities overnight, but the pathway they're using is the same one inside you right now. For nearly a century, Russian athletes have dominated Winter Olympic sports. Cross-country skiing, biathlon, ice hockey, figure skating. The medal counts aren't even close. The conventional explanation is that Russians grow up in cold climates, so they're naturally better at winter sports. But that doesn't explain why they also excel at summer sports that involve cold training like swimming. What's less discussed is the systematic cold adaptation protocols that Soviet and Russian sports programs have used since the 1940s. Russian athletes don't just train in the cold, they live in it. Cold dormitories, ice baths as routine as breakfast. Training facilities kept at temperatures that would have Western athletes filing complaints. The science behind this wasn't published in Western journals. It stayed behind the Iron Curtain. But the results were visible every 4 years when the medal counts came in. Here's what the Russians understood that Western sports science missed. Cold adaptation isn't just about tolerance, it's about transformation. When you train your body to function in cold, you're not just getting tougher. You're activating metabolic pathways that increase power output, accelerate recovery, and expand the upper limits of what your cardiovascular system can deliver. The Russian program wasn't building athletes who could endure cold. They were building athletes whose bodies ran hotter, recovered faster, and performed longer than anyone thought possible. VO2 max is the single most important number in endurance athletics. It measures how efficiently your body can use oxygen during intense exercise. The higher your VO2 max, the more work you can do before hitting your limit. Elite endurance athletes typically have VO2 max values between 60 and 70. Anything above 70 is considered exceptional. The highest ever recorded was around 97 in a Norwegian cyclist. Here's what makes cold adaptation so remarkable. It can expand your VO2 max beyond what conventional training achieves. The mechanism involves your mitochondria, the power plants inside your cells. When you're cold adapted, your body produces more mitochondria. This process is called mitochondrial biogenesis. More mitochondria means more capacity to process oxygen and produce energy. But there's another factor that's even more important: efficiency. When you burn glucose for fuel, your mitochondria produce a lot of waste products. Reactive oxygen species, free radicals. These damage your cells and limit how hard you can push. When you burn fat in a cold-adapted state, your mitochondria become dramatically more efficient. They produce the same energy with far less waste. Less oxidative stress means you can push harder, longer, without the cellular damage that normally forces you to stop. This is why cold-adapted athletes report that their performance ceiling keeps rising. They're not just training harder. They're training with a more efficient engine. Dr. Jack Kruse has written extensively about this, pointing out that the expansion of VO2 max in cold-adapted athletes happens over 24 to 36 months of consistent adaptation. Most athletes won't wait that long. They want results in weeks, so they never discover what their bodies are actually capable of. Every endurance athlete has heard the same advice. Carb load before competition. Eat pasta the night before a marathon. Keep glucose available for your muscles. This advice isn't wrong. It's incomplete. Carbohydrate loading works for warm-adapted athletes competing in warm conditions. Your muscles store glycogen. You burn through it during the race, and you hope you have enough to finish. But there's a ceiling to this approach. You can only store so much glycogen. When it runs out, you hit the wall. Every marathoner knows this feeling. Your body switches from burning stored carbs to burning fat, and the transition is brutal. Cold-adapted athletes skip this problem entirely. When you're fat-adapted through cold exposure, your body preferentially burns fat from the start. You're not waiting for glycogen to run out. You're accessing a fuel source that's essentially unlimited. Even a lean athlete has tens of thousands of calories stored as fat. A study from 1994 on runners in Buffalo, New York, one of the few studies done on cold-adapted endurance athletes, showed something remarkable. These runners training in cold conditions on high-fat diets had VO2 max values that exceeded what carb-loading athletes achieved. The sports science establishment largely ignored this study. It didn't fit the carbohydrate paradigm that dominated nutrition advice. But elite athletes noticed, and quietly the best performers in the world started incorporating cold training and fat adaptation into their protocols. Here's something that should change how you think about recovery. Every professional sports team now has cold plunge pools. Every elite training facility has cryotherapy chambers. This isn't a fad. It's a recognition of something that cold-adapted cultures have known for centuries. Cold doesn't just reduce inflammation after training, it accelerates the entire recovery process. When you expose your body to cold after intense exercise, you trigger a cascade of hormonal responses. Growth hormone surges, inflammatory cytokines drop. Blood flow to damaged tissues increases as your body rewarms. Athletes who use cold recovery protocols can train harder and more frequently than those who don't. They're not just recovering faster, they're adapting faster. The next time you see an elite athlete stepping into an ice bath, understand that they're not just soothing sore muscles. They're hacking their biology to compress weeks of adaptation into days. Lance Armstrong is a complicated figure. The doping scandal rightfully destroyed his competitive legacy. But there's another part of his story that deserves attention. Armstrong had freezers installed in his house with stationary bikes built into them. His training regimen was obsessively guarded. Teammates reported that what he published in books was deliberately misleading. The real protocols were kept secret. But here's what's more interesting than his cycling victories. Armstrong beat metastatic testicular cancer that had spread to his brain and lungs. The prognosis for that is usually measured in months, not years. He didn't just survive, he came back and dominated the most grueling endurance event in sports. Now, I'm not suggesting cold exposure cures cancer. That would be irresponsible. But the ancient pathway that cold activates does supercharge the immune system. It increases growth hormone. It optimizes cellular repair mechanisms. These are exactly the biological processes you'd want working at maximum capacity if you were fighting for your life. The drug he eventually got caught using, EPO, increases red blood cell production. Interestingly, cold exposure does the same thing naturally. It's almost as if he found a pharmaceutical shortcut to something his cold training was already partially providing. We'll never know the full story, but the cold training component of his program deserves more attention than it's received. Here's the part that separates elite athletes from everyone else: patience. Cold adaptation doesn't happen in a week. The initial changes, the ones you feel immediately, like reduced appetite and better sleep, Those come within about 2 weeks of consistent cold exposure. But the deep metabolic transformation, the expansion of VO2 max, the proliferation of brown fat, the full activation of the ancient pathway, that takes 24 to 36 months. Most people quit long before they get there. They try cold showers for a month, don't see dramatic results, and conclude it doesn't work. They never discover what their bodies are actually capable of because they're measuring progress on a timeline that doesn't match the biology. The Sherpas have been cold adapted for 25,000 years. Their biology is fully optimized. You're not going to match that in a few weeks. But here's what you can expect if you commit to the process. In the first 2 weeks, appetite changes, sleep improves, recovery from exercise accelerates. By month 3, you'll notice you're radiating heat. You'll feel warm in conditions that used to make you shiver. Your brown fat is activating. By month 6, body composition changes become visible. Fat loss accelerates, particularly visceral fat around your organs. By year 2, you're operating on a different metabolic level. Your VO2 max has expanded. Your endurance has increased. You're performing at a level that would have seemed impossible when you started. The elite athletes who use cold training understand this timeline. They're not looking for quick fixes, they're building a biological advantage that compounds over years. Want to know if your brown fat is activating? There's a simple test. After a few weeks of cold exposure, pay attention to the area between your shoulder blades and around your collarbone. These are the primary locations where brown fat accumulates in adults. When your brown fat is active, these areas will feel warm to the touch, even when the rest of your body is cool. You might notice that you're comfortable in temperatures that used to make you reach for a jacket. Some people report that they can actually feel their brown fat turn on during cold exposure. A warmth that spreads from these areas outward, like an internal furnace igniting. This isn't imagination. It's measurable biology. Studies using thermal imaging have confirmed that cold-adapted individuals show significantly higher heat signatures in these brown fat regions. Your body is capable of this. It just needs the signal to activate. At NASA Ames Research Park in California, there's a machine that promises 2 hours of exercise benefits in 20 minutes. It's called Vasper, and it was developed using data from the Sherpa studies and space program research. The technology combines 3 elements: compression cuffs on the arms and legs, cooling panels on the chest and head, and low-impact exercise. The compression traps lactic acid in the muscles. The cooling prevents the normal heat dissipation that would limit intensity. Together, they create conditions that trigger a massive growth hormone response. Users report that 20 minutes on Vasper leaves them feeling like they've completed a full workout. Recovery is faster, strength gains are accelerated, and the growth hormone spike is comparable to what you'd see from hours of conventional training. This isn't consumer technology. A Vasper system costs serious money, and access is limited to elite training facilities and wealthy biohackers. But here's what matters for the rest of us. Vasper proves that the principles work. Cold combined with exercise produces results that neither achieves alone. You don't need a $100,000 machine to apply these principles. A compression vest and a cold bath can approximate the effect. It takes longer, but the biology is the same. The NASA data that created Vasper is the same data that explains why Sherpas outperform everyone on Everest. It's the same data that explains Phelps and his impossible calorie counts. The science is settled. The only question is whether you'll use it. So how do you actually implement this if you're serious about performance? The protocol has to be progressive. You don't start with ice baths. That's a recipe for shock, misery, and quitting. Start with cold showers. The last 60 seconds of your regular shower, turn it cold. Do this for 2 weeks until it feels normal. Then extend the duration. 2 minutes, then 3, then 5. Your body is adapting, building the neural pathways and metabolic machinery for cold tolerance. After a month of cold showers, you can progress to cold water immersion, a bathtub with cold water. Add ice gradually over sessions. The target skin temperature is 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to activate the pathway, not so cold that you're risking hypothermia. Timing matters. Cold exposure after training accelerates recovery. Cold exposure in the morning can boost metabolism for the entire day. Avoid cold exposure right before training as it can temporarily reduce muscle performance. Diet has to align with the protocol. Increase your omega-3 intake significantly. Seafood becomes your best friend. Your cell membranes need to become more fluid to function properly in cold, and omega-3 fatty acids make that possible. Reduce carbohydrates, especially in the hours before cold exposure. You want your body burning fat, not glucose. The metabolic switch is the whole point. And be patient. The athletes who get the most from cold training are the ones who commit for years, not weeks. They understand that they're not just training their muscles. They're reprogramming their metabolism. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. The human body is capable of far more than modern life allows us to discover. We've engineered cold out of our existence so completely that most people have never experienced what their biology can actually do. Elite athletes have found the edge. They've discovered that cold isn't just something to endure. It's a tool that unlocks performance levels that seem impossible to everyone else. The Sherpas didn't become superhuman through genetics. They became superhuman through environment. An environment that activated pathways most humans never use. Michael Phelps didn't defy physics. He used physics that most people don't know exist. The Russian Olympic program didn't cheat their way to dominance. They understood something about human biology that Western sports science ignored. And NASA didn't study the Sherpas out of curiosity. They studied them because they needed to understand how humans could survive and perform in the most extreme conditions imaginable. The cold isn't your enemy. It's the signal your body has been waiting for. The signal that activates systems evolution spent millions of years perfecting. You have the same biology as the Sherpas, the same potential as Phelps, the same ancient pathway that every elite cold-trained athlete has learned to access. The only question is whether you'll activate it. Tomorrow morning, turn your shower cold for the last 60 seconds. That's it. That's where it starts. Pay attention to how you feel for the rest of the day. Notice your appetite. Notice your energy. Notice whether you're reaching for that mid-morning snack. If you want to go deeper, I've covered the complete cold thermogenesis protocol and the science behind the ancient pathway in previous videos. Check out the cold therapy playlist linked below. This isn't about suffering. It's about accessing capabilities that have been inside you your entire life. The elite athletes figured it out. NASA figured it out. The Russians figured it out decades ago. Now you know too. Subscribe if you want more content like this, and drop a comment telling me if you've experimented with cold training and what you've noticed. Your biology is waiting. It's time to see what it can really do.